In the great hall of the Galactic Empire, the leaders sat in silence, looking at a single blue planet on the screen. Earth, a small world on the edge of known space. To them it looked weak and unimportant. No large fleets, no heavy defenses, no strong signals. Just a quiet world with slow-moving ships and simple technology. The High Commander leaned forward and smiled. He had seen many worlds like this before. Easy targets, easy victories. The Empire had crushed civilizations far stronger than this. This would be nothing. The room slowly filled with soft laughter. Some officers whispered to each other. They spoke about how quickly the war would end. Some said it would not even be a war, just a short mission. The Emperor sat on his throne calm and confident. His voice was low but strong. He said humans were not a threat. He said they had nothing that could stop the Empire. The decision was simple. Earth would be taken, resources would be used, and the humans would either serve or disappear. Far from the main hall, a young officer stood watching the same data. His name was Kale. He was not laughing. Something felt wrong. He looked again at the scans. No fleets, no defenses, no signs of fear. That was the strange part. Every world showed fear when the Empire arrived. But Earth was quiet. Too quiet. Kale reported his thoughts to his senior officer. But the officer waved him away. He said humans were primitive. He said there was nothing to worry about. Kale stepped back, but his mind did not rest. He zoomed in on deep space around Earth. Nothing. Just darkness. But still he felt something hidden. Something waiting. Back in the hall, the commanders continued their plans. Attack routes were drawn. Ships were assigned. The Empire would move fast and strike without warning. They wanted to show their power. They wanted the galaxy to see another easy victory. The Emperor gave the final order. Prepare the fleet. The invasion would begin soon. Cheers filled the hall. To them, this was already over. But Kale looked once more at the empty space beyond Earth. His eyes stayed there longer than before. The silence of that space was heavy, like it was hiding a secret. He checked the sensors again. For a brief moment, the readings flickered. A small signal appeared and then vanished. Kale froze. He tried to scan again, but there was nothing, just empty space. He told himself it was an error, but deep inside he knew it was not. Something had moved. Something had been there, and now it was gone. He looked toward Earth on the screen. The small blue planet still looked weak, still looked harmless. But now it felt different, like it was not alone, like it was waiting. Back in the hall, the laughter grew louder. The Empire was ready for another easy win. But Kale could not smile. He felt a cold feeling in his chest, a feeling he had never felt before. Doubt. He whispered to himself that something was coming, something the Empire could not see. And by the time they would see it, it might already be too late. Far beyond the bright lights of the Galactic Empire, deep inside the endless darkness of space, something was moving. It did not shine like normal ships. It did not send signals. It did not leave any clear trace. It moved in silence like a shadow between the stars. No Empire sensors could fully lock onto it. No system could understand what it was. But it was real, and it was getting closer. Back on the Imperial flagship, Kale stood alone in the observation deck. The stars outside looked calm and endless. But his mind was not calm. He kept thinking about the strange signal he had seen. That short moment when something appeared and then disappeared. He tried to forget it, but he could not. He returned to the sensor station once again. He began to scan the same region of space. Again and again. Nothing. Just darkness. Just empty space. But then something strange happened. The system showed a small drop in energy levels. Very small. Almost nothing. But it was there. Kale leaned closer. His eyes focused on the screen. The reading moved slowly. Then it stopped. Then it vanished. His heart began to beat faster. This was not normal. He called another officer to check the data. But when the officer arrived, everything was gone. The readings were clean. Perfect. Like nothing had ever happened. The officer laughed and told Kale he was imagining things. He said space sometimes plays tricks on weak minds. Kale said nothing, but inside he knew the truth. Something was hiding, and it was very close. In the command hall, the Empire was making final preparations. Massive warships were being powered up, engines glowing with bright energy, weapons charging slowly, ready for battle. The commanders spoke with full confidence. They believed this mission would be fast. They believed humans would fall in hours. No one talked about danger. No one even considered it. Far away in the dark, the silent movement continued. More shapes joined the first. Large shapes, long shapes, like giants drifting in space. But still no light, still no sound, only cold silence. They moved together like they were guided by one mind. Their direction was clear, toward the Empire fleet, toward Earth. Back on the flagship, Kale decided to go deeper. He accessed restricted systems, old scanning methods that were no longer used. These systems were slower, but more sensitive. They could detect things modern systems ignored. He began a deep scan. The process was slow. Seconds felt like minutes. Minutes felt like hours. Then suddenly the screen changed. For a brief second, shapes appeared. Dark outlines. Huge objects hidden in the void. Kale stopped breathing. His eyes widened. He zoomed in. The shapes were not clear, but they were massive, far bigger than any known ship. Then, just as quickly as they appeared, they vanished again. The system returned to normal. Kale stepped back, his hands shaking. This was no error. This was real. He rushed to report this. But once again, the senior officers ignored him. They said no enemy could hide from Imperial sensors. They said it was impossible. Kale tried to explain, but no one listened. The Empire trusted its power too much. They believed they could see everything. They believed nothing could surprise them. And that belief made them blind. In the darkness, the hidden fleet moved closer. Now they were near enough to watch. Near enough to see the bright lights of the Empire's ships. They did not attack. They did not reveal themselves. They only waited, like hunters watching their prey. Kale returned to the observation deck. He looked out into the deep black space. His voice was low, almost a whisper. He said, "They are out there. I know they are." But no one answered him. Only silence. Cold and endless silence. And somewhere inside that silence, something was watching back. Far from the reach of the Galactic Empire, beyond the maps and known star routes, there were places no one had ever explored. Dark regions where even light seemed to fade. Places where silence was not empty but alive. Hidden deep inside one of these regions, something extraordinary existed. Massive structures floated in perfect stillness. They were not planets and not stations. They were something else. Something built with purpose. Something built by humans. Years ago, when the Empire first began to rise, humanity had seen the signs. They had watched worlds fall one by one. They had listened to stories of powerful fleets crushing entire civilizations. And they understood one simple truth. They could not win an open war. So they chose a different path. They disappeared, not fully but enough. They hid their true progress. They showed the galaxy only weakness, only simple ships, only basic technology. While far away in the darkness, they built something greater, something the Empire would never expect. These hidden structures were shipyards, vast and silent, protected by fields that bent light and energy, making them invisible to most sensors. Inside these shipyards, enormous warships were being created, slowly, carefully, each one more advanced than anything seen before. Their designs were unlike any known race. Sharp lines, heavy armor, deep energy cores, engines that made no sound, weapons that did not glow. Everything about them was made for one purpose: to remain unseen until the perfect moment. Back on Earth, life continued as normal. Cities moved, lights shined, people lived their lives. But beneath the surface, hidden commands were being sent. Quiet signals traveling across space. Messages only a few could understand. The time was coming. In one of the hidden shipyards, a commander stood watching a fleet. He was human, calm, focused. His name was Admiral Ryan. He had waited many years for this moment. He had trained his entire life for this. The fleet before him was ready. Hundreds of massive warships aligned in perfect formation. Dark, silent, powerful. They looked like shadows given form. No lights, no noise, just presence. a presence that could shake the galaxy. A voice echoed softly through the command center. The Empire fleet has moved. The invasion will begin soon. Admiral Ryan closed his eyes for a moment. Then he gave a single order. Prepare all units. Activate Phase 1. Slowly the silent fleet came to life. Not with bright flashes or loud sounds, but with subtle movement. Energy flowed through the ships like a quiet storm. Systems awakened one by one. Engines warmed without a trace. Weapons charged without a glow. It was power hidden inside silence. Back on the Imperial flagship, Kale could not shake the feeling. He stood once again at the sensor station, waiting, watching, hoping to see something. Anything. Then it happened again, this time stronger. The readings spiked for a brief second. Multiple signals appeared at once, large shapes moving together. Kale quickly locked the scan. His breath stopped. This was real. He tried to alert the command center immediately, but before the data could fully load, everything vanished again, like it had never been there. Kale slammed his hand on the console. They are hiding, he whispered. They are real. But still no one believed him. The Empire continued forward, blind and confident. They saw only what they wanted to see. They believed only in their own power. Far away, the hidden human fleet began to move. Not fast, not loud, but steady, controlled, like a storm slowly forming. Admiral Ryan looked at the stars ahead, his voice calm but firm. He said, they think we are weak. He said, they think we are nothing. Then he paused, his eyes focused on the distant glow of the Empire fleet. And he spoke again. Let them believe it. For now, the silent war had already begun, and the Empire had no idea what was coming for them out of the darkness. The stars around the Imperial fleet burned bright as hundreds of warships moved in perfect formation. Engines, glowing weapons, ready systems locked on their target. Earth. To the Empire, this was the final step. A simple strike. A quick victory. The command hall was alive with confidence. Officers giving orders, screens showing clear space ahead. No threats detected. No resistance expected. Everything was under control. But far beyond their vision, something had already arrived. Hidden in the darkness, the human fleet waited. Silent and still, like shadows resting between stars. They were closer now, closer than ever before. Close enough to see every movement of the Empire's ships. Close enough to strike at any moment. Inside the flagship, Kale stood frozen at his station. His eyes locked on the sensor screen. His hands slightly shaking. He felt it again, that strange pressure in the air. Like something massive was right there, but invisible. He whispered to himself, they are here. This time the system reacted suddenly. Multiple readings appeared across the screen. Not one, not two, but dozens. Then hundreds. Large objects surrounding the fleet. Kale stepped back in shock. His voice rose as he called out to the command hall. Unknown signals all around us. This is not empty space. But before he could finish, the readings flickered, then vanished again. The room fell silent for a second. Then laughter returned. The commanders dismissed it as another system glitch. They said the sensors were reacting to their own fleet. They refused to believe anything else. But Kale knew this was real, and it was getting worse. Outside in the endless void, the first human warship slowly shifted. Its surface dark, absorbing all light. Its massive body stretching across space like a sleeping giant. Then, without warning, a faint pulse moved across its hull. Not bright, not loud, just enough to signal one thing. Activation. One by one, more ships began to respond. A chain reaction of silent awakening. No explosions, no flashing lights. Only movement. Slow, controlled, and terrifying. The hidden fleet was no longer waiting. It was ready. Inside the human command ship, Admiral Ryan stood calm, his eyes watching the Empire fleet through advanced displays. Every ship, every movement, every signal was clear to him. They were blind, he said softly. They still cannot see us. An officer beside him nodded. All units are in position, awaiting your command. Ryan took a deep breath. Years of planning, years of hiding, all leading to this moment. He raised his hand slowly, then gave the order. Begin Phase 2. Instantly, the dark fleet moved, not with chaos, but with perfect precision. Ships gliding into attack positions, surrounding the Empire from all sides, cutting off every path, closing every escape. And still the Empire saw nothing. Back on the flagship, Kale felt it before he saw it. The air seemed heavy, the silence too deep. Then suddenly, every system alarm began to scream. Lights flashed across the command hall. Red warnings filled every screen. Unknown objects detected at close range. Multiple targets, all directions. Distance critical. For the first time, the room was no longer calm. Officers rushed to their stations. Voices filled with confusion and fear. How did they get so close? Where did they come from? No one had answers. The Emperor rose from his throne, his face no longer calm. "Show them on screen," he ordered. The main display flickered for a moment. Then the darkness broke. Shapes appeared. Massive warships surrounding them. Silent, black, and overwhelming. Far larger than anything the Empire had ever built. The room fell into complete silence. No laughter, no confidence. Only shock. One officer whispered, "This is impossible." Another stepped back in fear. They were everywhere. Above, below, all sides. The Empire fleet was trapped. Kale stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He had seen the signs. He had tried to warn them. But now it was too late. The hidden fleet was no longer hidden. It had arrived. And for the first time in its history, the Galactic Empire was not in control. Far out in the darkness, Admiral Ryan looked at the trapped fleet. His voice calm but cold. "Target locked. Wait for my signal." The silence returned once again. But now it was different. This silence was not empty. It was filled with power, filled with danger. And in the next moment, it would break into something the Empire would never forget. The silence did not last long. For a brief moment, the entire battlefield stood still. Two great forces facing each other in the dark. One confident, but now shaken. The other calm and fully in control. Inside the Imperial flagship, panic began to spread. Officers rushed from one station to another. Voices rising, questions without answers. How did they get here? Why were the sensors blind? What are these ships? No one knew. The Emperor stood still, but his eyes showed something new. Fear. He tried to hold control. He ordered all ships to prepare weapons. Target the unknown fleet. Fire on command. But even as the order was given, something felt wrong. The human ships were not moving like normal fleets. They were too still, too perfect. Like they were waiting for something. Like they already knew what would happen next. On the other side, Admiral Ryan watched in silence. His fleet ready, his plan clear. He did not rush. He did not show anger. He only waited. Then he gave a quiet command. Initiate first strike. No loud sound followed. No bright flash. But in the next second, everything changed. One Imperial ship suddenly went dark. Its lights gone, its systems dead. Then another. And another. One by one, ships across the Empire fleet began to fail. Engines stopped, weapons shut down, shields collapsed. Confusion spread faster than fear. "We are losing power," one officer shouted. "Systems are not responding," said another. "This is not an attack. This is something else." Kale stared at the readings in shock. There were no visible weapons. No energy blasts, no missiles. But the damage was real. It was like the human fleet was turning their ships off. Like they had control over them. The Emperor slammed his hand in anger. "Restore systems," he shouted. "Fight back." But nothing worked. The fleet was falling apart without a single explosion. Then suddenly a new signal filled every screen. A human transmission. Clear, calm, and strong. "This is Admiral Ryan of the human fleet. You have entered our space without warning. You believed we were weak. You believed we had nothing. You were wrong." The message echoed through every ship, through every system. No fear, no anger. Just truth. Inside the command hall, no one spoke. They listened, unable to respond. Ryan continued, "We do not seek war, but we will not accept invasion. Leave now, or face destruction." The message ended. Silence followed, but this silence was heavy, filled with pressure. The Emperor looked around his broken fleet. Half his ships were already disabled, the rest struggling to stay active. He had never faced this before, never felt this powerless. His commanders waited for his decision. Some wanted to retreat. Others still believed they could fight. But deep inside, they all knew the truth. This enemy was beyond them. Kale stepped forward slowly, his voice low but clear. "We should listen." He said, "They are giving us a chance." The Emperor did not respond at first. His pride fought against the fear inside him. But then another ship went dark. Then another. The human fleet was still not attacking directly. They were showing control, showing power, without destruction, and that was more terrifying than any weapon. The Emperor closed his eyes for a moment. Then slowly he spoke. All ships prepare to retreat. The words felt heavy, like defeat, like something the Empire had never accepted before. Orders were sent across the fleet. Damaged ships began to pull back. Engines weak, systems unstable. One by one, they turned away from Earth, away from the silent human fleet. Admiral Ryan watched without emotion. He did not stop them. He did not chase. He simply allowed them to leave, because the message had already been delivered. As the Empire fleet disappeared into the distance, Kill looked back one last time. The human ships were still there, silent, dark, and powerful, watching, waiting, and he knew this was not the end. This was a warning. And next time, there might not be a chance to leave. The galaxy had just changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The stars were quiet again. The battlefield that once held two great fleets was now empty. Only silence remained, but it was not the same silence as before. This silence carried a message, a warning that had already spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Empire had retreated. For the first time in its long history, it had stepped back, not from a greater force, but from a species it once called weak. News traveled fast, faster than ships, faster than signals. Stories began to rise on distant worlds. Whispers turned into fear. Fear turned into respect. Humans were no longer ignored. They were no longer seen as small. They were now something else, something unknown, something dangerous. On the imperial capital, the great halls were no longer filled with laughter. They were filled with silence, heavy and uncomfortable. The Emperor sat alone. No pride, no confidence, only thought. He replayed the moment again and again. The sudden appearance of the human fleet, the loss of control, the message. He had never felt so exposed. His empire was strong, but now he understood. Strength alone was not enough. Not against an enemy that could hide, that could wait, that could strike without warning. His advisors spoke carefully now. No one laughed anymore. No one called humans weak. Instead, they asked questions. How long had humans been preparing? What else were they hiding? Could they strike again? No one had answers. Far away from the Empire, in the deep hidden regions of space, the human fleet remained still. They had not celebrated. They had not chased the enemy. They simply returned to silence, as if nothing had happened. Inside the command ship, Admiral Ryan stood watching the stars. An officer approached him slowly. "The Empire has retreated completely. All units are safe." Ryan nodded once. No smile, no pride, just calm understanding. This was never about victory. This was about balance. He turned and looked at his fleet. Massive silent ships resting in the dark. They were powerful, but power was not meant to be shown all the time. Sometimes it was enough to let others imagine it. A new message was prepared, not just for the Empire, but for the entire galaxy. It was simple, clear, and direct. We are humanity. We do not seek war. We do not take what is not ours, but we will defend our home. We will protect our people, and we will not be underestimated again. The message spread across star systems, reaching worlds that had never even seen a human. And everywhere it arrived, it left the same effect. Silence. Deep, thoughtful silence. Because now the galaxy knew something it did not know before. Humans had been watching. Humans had been preparing. And humans were far stronger than they appeared. Back on Earth, life continued as always. People walked in cities. Lights filled the nights. No one saw the fleets hidden far away. No one heard the silent war that had just taken place. But they were safe. And that was enough. Kale stood alone on a distant station watching the stars. He had been reassigned after the retreat. His belief had been ignored. But in the end, he had been right. He looked into the darkness again. But now it felt different. Not empty, not unknown, but alive. He whispered quietly. They were always there. We just cannot see them. And somewhere deep in space, beyond sight, beyond sensors, the human fleet remained. Silent, watching, waiting, because they knew one truth that the Empire had just learned. The greatest power is not always the one you can see. And the greatest threat is the one that waits in silence. Humanity was that silence. And if the galaxy ever forgot again, the darkness would remind them. Once more,